far gone. Good morning, 7:31, and in the studio, Rick Surrency, our Superintendent of Schools here in Putnam County. Good morning.
Good morning, Robin.
Thank you so much for coming in, and want to hear all the wonderful things that are going on in the Putnam County schools.
Well, thank you for having me again today, and a lot of good stuff going on. And I did want to clarify, yesterday in our board meeting, you probably saw in today's paper, there was an article in there about the school board voted to not transport certain students beginning next year within the 2-mile radius of schools. And I want to explain that. First of all, that addresses secondary students, grades 6 through 12. We're going to ask that their parents make arrangements to transport them to school next year if they live within 2 miles of the school. And also, if your child goes to a daycare within the 2-mile radius, we're asking that the daycares transport them to and from school. The reason for that is we have a severe shortage of bus drivers, and we want to be able to provide adequate transportation for all students who live outside that 2-mile zone. So some drivers are actually having to make 2 runs to deliver students to school. So we're just trying to be more efficient in our transportation.
I've also seen a sign or a posting somewhere that you're looking for bus drivers.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Anyone who's interested in being a bus driver, we definitely have openings, and now would be a good time to apply. Maybe be ready to drive for next year. So just contact our district office.
All right, that sounds great. Anything else in the board meeting last night you want to mention?
Yeah, actually, I mentioned to our board members yesterday that we have one of our schools, Mosley Elementary, has been selected as our first magnet school.
What is a magnet school?
I knew you would ask that.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're ready to tell me, because I've heard the term, but that's one of those things that you just figure everybody else knows, so you don't want to be the one that asks the silly question. But I'll ask it for everybody. What's a magnet school?
Well, magnet school is a public school, and it's not a charter school. It's a public school, and it does exactly what the word suggests. It's a magnet. It's designed to have programs that draw students to the school, or students who are at the school to remain in the school. And it provides unique programs where that's school-wide, kind of a common theme, if you will, and it promotes more learning. And the theme of Mosley, and we're going to call it an academy for college and career readiness. And we'll be doing some unique things to prepare students, even at the elementary level.
That was my next question.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, Academy for Career and College Readiness, isn't that an elementary school?
Well, we are starting very early.
Apparently.
We're going to be using certain strategies to help students look at different careers and look at those, whatever they need to do to start preparing for college. I know that sounds crazy, but we want to start students thinking early about what can they do to prepare for life after high school, and it starts very early.
Wow.
So we'll be presenting a plan to the school board at the next meeting, and it should be very interesting, so I would encourage you to stay tuned.
That sounds great. So I've asked folks on Facebook and our station page if there was anything that they wanted us to ask you about. And so far, the one thing that I had as a response, and the very first one that came in very quickly, was please encourage him. And they said Rick has a great vision and a big challenge, and he does need our input, our support, and our prayers.
Oh, thank you so much.
And so I do encourage folks to definitely keep you and the whole school district in prayer, because you do have a big challenge in front of you. And to be able to hear about that and to be able to ask you some questions is really helpful. So I want to ask you to stick around for a few minutes. We'll play a song, and if anybody has a question that they'd like to ask this morning, we won't put you live on the air. Just go ahead and call in at 386-325-3334, and we'll see if we can fit that in for you. We'll come back and talk with Rick Surrency after this from Crowder on Hope FM. Hope FM and Crowder. Well, good morning. This is Robin, 7:39, and in the studio with me this morning, our Superintendent of Schools, Rick Surrency, and we're glad to have an update on things that are going on. We talked about last night's school board meeting, and one of the big concerns that we've been hearing a lot about lately is the budget. So I'm sure that's something you talk about a lot.
Absolutely, and that's one of those necessary things that we need to deal with. We're actually having another budget workshop before the next school board meeting on April 18th, but we are going around the county, and I'm meeting with different superintendent advisory groups in the 3 areas of the county getting input about some things that we can do to cut our budget, and it's been very helpful. So we're trying everything we can to reduce our expenses without touching the classrooms.
And one of the things we talked about the last time you were here was looking at positions that could be eliminated, not employees that could be eliminated, but positions just to try and save a little bit of money. Has that been a continued discussion? It was specifically about the media specialists.
Yeah, and thanks for mentioning that. Last night in one of our meetings in Interlochen, some of the people were concerned that we were laying people off or firing people, and that's absolutely not correct. We are eliminating positions. And when we do that, those people can go back into the classroom or do something else in the school system, but they will not be laid off. And we're trying everything we can to make sure everyone has a job next year.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of next year, I did have a question from a listener that came in asking about school start times, especially for high school students, and kind of a long article to read right now, but they were citing some sort of research about teenagers needing more sleep, and that the suggestion is that schools should start later for high school students. And is that anything that you all have considered in the past?
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it works now. Our high schools, we try to start secondary schools later than elementary schools because teenagers do work on a different rhythm, if you will, need a little more sleep, or they go to sleep later at night. So we're trying to be sensitive to that. So absolutely.
Well, we appreciate folks letting us know that they have questions and you being open to answering those. We did have somebody that mentioned that there's a big event coming up, and I know that Jenkins Middle School is near and dear to your heart, having spent many years there. And so this Friday, it's the 7th annual Hoedown in P-Town. And I think maybe some folks haven't heard of that yet, even though it's become quite the event. Can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. Lucas Bennett at Jenkins Middle School. Outstanding archery coach, and he is for several years has sponsored the Hoedown in P-Town, and he's working with our FFA at Jenkins, and they sponsor this big event at the fairgrounds, and it's turned out to be a pretty big annual event. And I would encourage you to come out Friday night, and there's all kind of games going on, all kind of things to eat, and it's something you don't want to miss. So come out, and it helps support our archery team. By the way, our Jenkins archery team and our Palatka High School archery teams will be competing at the national level in Louisville, Kentucky in May. So this will be quite an honor for our entire community. So they need that. They need to raise funds to go up there. So please come out and support them Friday night.
And I think it's great. They've actually created a really fun event, and it's different than any typical fundraisers.
Yeah, it is truly unique, and they have monster trucks out there, and there's something for every age. So please come out, and it's a great way to start spring break. So come on out.
That sounds great. There's one other question that someone had mentioned, and they said, we know there's a lot of cuts, but if you would look at Putnam Academy, they apparently need a new roof and some school zone flashing lights in front of there, and so they wanted to know if that would be something that you might consider.
Well, we've actually looked at that, and I have our Director of Safety and Security taking a look at that, so we are sensitive to that. We want all of our students in our schools to be safe, and if there's anything that's a concern, we're definitely looking at it. So we are investigating that situation. I'm aware of that.
Good to know. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to come in and answer questions from our listeners and just keep us up to date about what's going on in our school system. Of course, spring break next week, so that's an exciting time, especially for parents and teachers and students, and for all of us that don't have to drive through the school zones and follow a bus in the morning. But we hope that everybody has a fun and safe spring break, and wanted to remind folks that you guys really do a lot on social media and on your website, and it's a great place to go for information.
Yeah, we have an outstanding media department, and please continue to check out our Facebook page and website, and we put messages out there all the time, videos. So please take a look at that, and look forward to any input you have.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for coming in this morning. We appreciate that.
Thanks for having me, Robin.